Hello and welcome to the Utiltiy studio. I'm joined now by Kim Norgaard from Elster, and Kim, we've been talking before the event about what we should do in the time here, and we've taken this theme of adapt or die.
Yes.
You know, the utilities need to do this.
Yep.
And it's been a running theme throughout the conference. People have been sat here, they've been saying, yeah, yes, we need business models.
Yep.
The question I have for you is, adapt or die, but adapt into what?
Yeah.
There seems to be a lack of clarity that the industry is maybe given, or vision to the utility of what they need to adapt into.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good questions indeed. So it's just not a question about where to go, but also where do we come from, and where you go to and where you come from is quite revolutionary compared to, I think, many things that has happened in this industry for decades, where we need to go into a place where we get into a smarter world. And when I say smarter world, it's quite big, and we have a lot of hype of Internet of Things and so on. That's not what I'm going to. I'm really alluding to being more smart inside your smart meters, your smart grid, be able to use your finances better, your funds in a utility. A utility has a certain amount of funds that's clear. You can't do everything. We know that smart metering is a major infrastructure investment that's going to happen. And clearly that's what's holding it a little bit back, although being discussed for many years.
But people are still questioning the ROI of smart meters, aren't they?
Yeah, well they are, sure they are. And that's where we need to find the example, we need to find the value of that. And the value per se is not in the meters. Maybe the investments are in the meters, the value is not. The value lies in the data. So what can I use my data for? How can I be smarter? A big part of the investment in a utility is network maintenance. So how can I do that smarter? How can I save some of my money there to get a better ROI, as you mentioned yourself? And clearly, I like the example we discussed before. In US, there's now 2 states where marijuana is legalized, and one of our customers there realized that he could use his data from his smart metering, smart grid system, that suddenly a lot of
abnormal power usage,
right away, thanks for helping out here, happened in some certain states. They could really pin down where it was. People was growing marijuana with big lamps and so on, and you could actually have the advantage of saying it's exactly there where I need to strengthen my grid.
Right. Not
that they couldn't grow marijuana, but the utility needs to know where to strengthen my grid, where to put my investment. Previously you did that, I exaggerate if I say in the blind, but partly in the blind from standard models and so on. I don't think standard model takes into consideration people growing weed somewhere. I'm sure it doesn't. Yeah. So you can really see that. So that's basically one of the very important part of the smart meters and going into smart grid. So the whole demand response, distribution automation around that is a very important part of it. So that's really going from do things in the blind, getting a data once a year from a customer, basically getting a postcard as a customer and you send it in, into having ample amount of data to control your grid, to monitor, to save money in the maintenance of your grid network and so on.
And that's an operational efficiency.
Definitely it's operational efficiency. And if you look at a cost-benefit analysis, which is being discussed a lot in Europe, these are one of them. I mean, and this is clearly one which goes directly into the pocket of the of the network operator. Right. So they invest. It's not the same in every market. UK and Germany is a bit different, but typically in Europe, it's the network operator investing in smart meters. Why don't they also take the data and use for sensible
So if you're using, so again, going back to the macro theme of adapt or die, and what you've just articulated is you need to adapt because that will allow you to have a fit-for-purpose infrastructure. For example, but people keep talking about the business model, saying the business model needs to change, the business model needs to change. You know, that's just an operational efficiency argument. I don't want to belittle it. But what does the business model need to change into? And do we need to view things differently? Like, okay, there's a distribution utility, there is a retail utility, and
well, that changed. This unbundling has changed. I mean, years ago, that you had to have your distribution arm, you had to have your retail arm, or completely separate companies. So that's changed already. Some of the issue is cost-benefit analysis. Who's actually paying for the investment and who is getting the benefit? And in the cost-benefit analysis done in Europe, one look at the overall benefit, not just the benefit for the one investing in the infrastructure. So my example here is clearly a benefit for the one investing in the infrastructure, where you also see other benefits for them, getting closer to the customer, easier to handle when he calls and have issues. But you also see benefits for the retail arm, for the consumer himself, of course. The overall benefit I will never question. I know there's a couple of cost-benefit analysis, CBAs, that has shown a negative result. Mostly have shown positive. I would question in any way that, in my point of view, cannot be negative. There's so many benefits.
Yeah, and again, though, when we then talk about the business models, you know, what do those need to change into? Because I think, you know, one of the things that I'm finding is that if everybody is saying we need to change, and you know, we were talking a bit in the preparation work. Oh, we've been saying this for ages, and nothing's happened. It hasn't moved.
Not as fast as
that says to me that the business model ain't as broke as people make it out to be. Because when it's really broke, you change. You do change. And you do change.
Yeah. Well, and I think that fits very well in the theme here, adapt or die. Because adapt is not something that you just look at what you did in the past and you do it smarter. I think that's definitely a good thing to do that. Pays off by itself, but also future-proof. I mean, one example is the easy to understand example of by growing wheat. But there are a lot of examples how the whole thing's changed. We are all getting photovoltaics on our roofs, we get windmill, all the distributed production instead of the centralized production will require a huge investment in the network we have out there. And that can be done in blind, or it can be done with having a good knowledge and saving a lot of money in that. And also being more safe in the sense that you can control your demand out there. If there's suddenly too many loads going on at the same time, you can control on-off loads, electrical vehicles or whatever example it can be. So things are changing. Discussion has been going on to change it for the last 10 years, I would say. The investments has been huge in the industry. I use the example of hundreds of millions of euros, which I believe is the fact. Because the industries have said we are ready, we want to go. But still, business models are discussed. Does it pay off or not? Well, most cost-benefit analysis in Europe shows it does pay off. But maybe it doesn't go in my pocket as a network operator, it goes in someone else's pocket.
So therein lies some of the problem, doesn't it? Because you've got a network operator, and let's paint an extreme scenario to illustrate the point. Let's imagine we have a whole road, and let's imagine that road is overnight got PVs all over it, and they've even been able to put up a windmill. All right. The vision is for this fictional road is then effectively off-grid more than it is on-grid in terms of drawing power. But it still needs that grid connect because that's your failover and that provides the stability. But to me, the person who has a disproportionate investment is the network operator, the distribution operator. But they're getting a negative reward for that investment because suddenly, how do you pay for that in that? And again, I paint an extreme scenario to make the point.
Sure. And I partly agree and partly disagree. I mean, I agree in the terms that the benefits is maybe not seen. I disagree that there isn't the benefit in it for even the network operator alone. I mean, I come from the Nordics. Most of the rollout out there, except Sweden, has happened purely on distribution network operators seeing their benefit of having the smart infrastructure. So it pays off for themselves. When you don't see that yourself as a DSO, then yes, you might need some tariff changes, might need some other ways that you see as a beneficial for yourself, which is being discussed many places. But at the same time, as a DSO, you also has a business to run, so if you can optimize your tariffs and get your benefits, so much better. But I mean, the DSOs has been saying we're going to do that now for the last 5-10 years. And I'm not quite sure what's holding them back. They say we want to do that. It's not really happening, at least not the speed. I hope to see some traction going on right now. But we have a goal which is 80% in 2020 in EU. I think the latest number I saw from EU was expectation of 72%. Question is, would it even be 72%? But it has to start. I mean, you can't do that from 2019 to 2020. You have to get started now.
So, what is the roadblock? What is holding it back? Because you're saying that the cost-benefit analysis stacks up, all of this stuff stacks up. You know, is this just a pure and simple case of that? You know, we're still having a hangover from the recession. The money just isn't there. You know?
Yeah, well, that's a part of it.
Yeah.
Sure, the recession has not helped. I mean, in some countries, there's been a huge recession. The customers are not state-owned, but they're, let's say, semi-public, and they also feel the recession, so maybe the money is not there. And we're not talking about a short-term investment. I mean, everything that a utility do is long-term investments when they build power plants or whatever it is. It's long-term investments, long-term payback. And if you don't have money, something like that, which has to be finished in 2020, somewhere in the future, not so much in the future anymore, but previously, it's easy to hold back and say, I can do that next year. So I think that's a part of it.
Yeah.
And they haven't reached the pain point yet where they really see things like that happening. They haven't really seen the new grid being rolled out with more distributed production, but seeing it coming, I think.
And just as we're coming to the end of our time here as well, and it flies past so quickly, we've been talking about the adapt, we've been painting a vision of what it is, but if I go to the other part of our strapline for this interview, what would die look like? You know?
Yeah. Well, there's some painting. I mean, this is more tagline than it's something else.
Yeah.
Of course, the utility won't die. It's the DSO is a natural monopole, so you can't really die. But you can get less and less. You can get more and more microgrids around there. You would lose your customers. You wouldn't die, but you would really have to reduce the whole thing that you're doing. And I don't think that's in the interest of the utility employees, of the consumers, of anyone. I think it's much better if you follow on with the development.
And that is one of the dangers, isn't it? Because, for example, again, I'm going to build a hypothetical model. Yeah, I'm a developer. I've been granted development for a mixed housing commercial thing. And I want to put energy at the core of my development. It's one of the things that I'm going to use as a USP as to why people would move in. You could theoretically, now that all of this is much more accessible and companies like Arab are already getting involved in things like that, you could build this entire thing to be self-sufficient if it's large enough. It needs a bit of scale.
There's a microgrid still, but yes, you can.
Yeah.
And I mean, something is being planned, something is being foreseen around the microgrid. I don't think it's the benefit of the consumer, the customers, the employees of the utility or the utilities itself that this kind of things will happen. But if the utilities don't adapt, I mean, that will happen.
It will happen, and then they'll be forced to.
They will, or they will just lose their customer base, get a smaller customer base, be a smaller company. which again, and I don't see the benefit for anyone, consumers, utilities, employees. I don't see that.
Well, Kim, it's been great talking to you, and a pleasure to have you in here as well. Let me finish off with this. So you know, I get a sense from you that you're going, I've heard all of this for a long time. As a finishing comment, are you seeing movement in the right direction now?
That's a very, very good question. I think I do see some movement, and I think that's good to see. I don't see as much movement as I think the industry claims that it will happen, and that we all would like to see happen.
Perfect. On that note, we'll leave it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.